And now coming to our stage is Arlene Beyer.
Hello everyone. On the morning of September 11th, I can remember waking up to a most beautiful day. And while driving to work, I can remember thinking about how grateful I was, how everything in my life was just perfect. My husband and I, after being married for 15 years, had just broke ground in July of the construction of our first home together, our dream home. And I have two great boys, and one in high school and one in junior high, and everything was just great. As I was driving, I had heard that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center and turned my frown around. I got to my desk and I turned on the computer and I saw what had happened. So I immediately tried to get in touch with my husband. My husband was a New York City firefighter and he worked the night shift. So I tried calling him on his cell phone, he didn't answer. He should have been relieved that morning. So I called the firehouse. And I spoke to a fireman who I never spoke to before. He was from a covering company. Turns out that 6th Engine had been called down on a run earlier, and he just assured me in that, beautiful fire department personality, don't worry, everything's fine, we'll take care of it, I'm sure he's on his way home, don't worry about it. I said, okay, all right, fine. I will continue to work. And I'll make a few phone calls, I'll talk to my mom, I talked to his mom, I said everything's fine, don't watch TV, just let it go. I continued to work. So as the morning unfolded and after the Pentagon was hit, I knew that it was one thing I had to do. I have to go. I had to get my kids. That's it. I know where he is now. Even if he was on his way home, he's there now. Okay, so my job is to get my kids and just bring them home and keep them safe. So on my way home, I can remember a lot of things happening. I can remember the South Tower had fallen. I had heard that on the radio. I got my kids home. I was very fortunate. Schools were crazy, but I got them home. I turned on the TV for the first time, and now I'm going to actually see what I can only hear. And I remember the reporter from, I think it was Fox 5, he said, I just want to warn people that the footage that you're about to see is of the North Tower collapse, and there is footage of people who had jumped, and I just instantly turned that TV off. My two boys were behind me. I did not want them to see anything like that, and I was just shocked that they would put something like that on TV. So I just turned around and I said to them, why don't you guys go play with the trains? They were on the front porch. And I turned off the TV. Now, my husband had just brought home his beloved train set for the boys. It was only maybe a couple of weeks old. And, for them anyway, but he had collected them ever since he was little. Each in their individual boxes, hermetically sealed. He knew that now the boys were old enough to take care of these trains, and they would be responsible enough to play with them. So, although we've been very busy, because this whole summer we were working on the house, and there was no camping trips and things like that. I think he really wanted to give them the trains so they would have something to do while we were working. And he had spent, I don't know how many hours building this board. He glued all the fake grass on, and he hammered all the tracks, and he made this terrific control panel. He was very proud of it, very, very proud. So I just wanted them to step out of reality for a minute and go back into just have fun. And I waited. That was the longest day of my life, and I know fire department protocols, they will call you. So I waited. And around 8 o'clock that night, I got a phone call from a fireman who worked with my husband. Now, my husband had worked with this company for about 9 years, and I knew everybody. And it's a single engine company, so it's a smaller house, so it's easier to get to know everyone. And Paul loved his job, and he used to come home and he'd tell me stories about the firehouse, and he would do great impressions, and he would talk in their voices. So whenever I met them, I knew exactly what they were. How do you know me? Oh, I know you. So when I heard the voice of this man, I was like, oh my God, it's good. How are you? And he's like, baby, he goes, the captain wants to talk to you. I said, oh, okay. Now, I'd only met him once before. He was a new officer to the house, and he got on the phone, and he told me that Paul was not relieved. He had been called down on a run, and that they had located one of the firemen who was with him. He was at a local hospital, and he said, just relax. He goes, I'm going to go talk to him. I checked all the other hospitals. He's not he's not there, but we'll find out what happened. And I told him I was terrified about watching TV. I didn't see it. I don't want to see it. He's like, don't worry about it. He goes, I'll be your ears. I'll be your eyes. I will call you. I trusted him, and I went to bed. The next morning I woke up, and he called me, and his voice had changed, but he sounded very like, it's okay. He goes, Arlene, I spoke to Bill. I know exactly where they are. They're in the North Tower. I'm at the site right now, and he's trying to explain to me what he saw and what he's seeing, and I'm trying to understand what that was, and I can't. But he said to me, Arlene, if you could see this, he goes, there are thousands of men here, but we're hopeful. There's a lot of voids, there's places and spaces. He goes, they're here somewhere, we'll find them. And I trusted. And I said, okay. And from that moment, that man's voice, that man became my voice of hope. And every day for the next few weeks, he called me in the morning, he called me at night, and we just had this incredible bond. And he would pass the phone down to the other guys who were working with him on the site, and I knew them all, and it was wonderful to hear their voices, and I was always so worried about them. Because after a couple of days, I knew in my heart that Paul wasn't coming home. And I knew that what the focus was just to find them and bring them home. And we've been very fortunate in our firehouse. We had found 2 of the men that were lost that day, and we lost 4. So it was still very positive, but it was just very difficult for the men to work in this kind of conditions. And I can remember one of our evening phone calls, he said to me, the captain had said to me, he's like, how you doing, how's it going? And I'm like, I don't know if I can get through this. I don't know how I'm going to do this without him. And he would say to me, well, what did you do when he was at the firehouse, Arlene? You did it. You did it. And you will do it. I guess so. I said, but this really does feel like the longest 24 of my life. And I always used to call him the captain. He was like, call me Roger. So I was like, okay, Captain Roger. I just couldn't get past that. But he used to get a kick out of it, so I guess it was okay. So after a few weeks, the conditions were very terrible there, and I knew that, I had to get the kids back to school. They'd gone back to school, and I had to go on with my life, and I had a big decision to make. I had to make a decision. What was I going to do at my house? So one of my nightly conversations, I asked the captain, did he ever talk to you about the house? And he's like, yeah. He goes, of course he did. I says, well, I'm supposed to meet with the plumbers, and I haven't even been out of the house. He's like, you know what? His voice changed, and he got very upbeat. He's like, you know what, Arlene, is this about the plumbing? I'm a plumber, of course, fireman / everything or anything, or something. Yeah, it's about the plumbing. He goes, you know what? We're going to come. We'll meet you there on Saturday. And I was just so excited. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm finally going to get to see this man who I'd only met once before, but I've talked to him, and he's everything now that's holding me together. And all the rest of the guys from 6, this is just, it's a good day. Okay, I'll be there. So I met them at the house. And it was tough in the beginning. A lot of the guys, it was really rough for them, and I could see, but I was just so happy to see them and so grateful that they were okay. And on that day, we decided, you know what? We're gonna do this. We're gonna continue this work. We're gonna rebuild this house. We're gonna take care of it. We'll do this for you. So now, with these men, instead of working at the site and seeing things that no man should see, they're going to be working, doing something positive and helping our family and build our house for Paul. So it was wonderful. And I could say, now this is just a month later, October 13th, I had about 12 firemen pulling cables and wires and things all through the house. And it was a really great day. Of course, I had to remind them, I said, Paul was a machinist before he was a fireman. Don't forget that. And he's going to be watching everything you do. I'll make sure you do it right. And we would have great conversations about what went on in the firehouse. And Paul used to share a lot of the stories with me, so I knew a lot of them, and I would tell them their stories back to them, and they thought that was great. And I would say, did I get it right? And they were like, yeah, you got it right, you got it right. So it was really very healing for them. And I saw that. I saw that them helping me was helping them. And that was a beautiful thing. So now we are here so many years later, and I've pretty much made peace with my house, and I moved in. It took me years to actually sit down and have a meal instead of standing up, because I just couldn't, wasn't home without him. I've done that now, and my kids have done very well. I'm so proud of them. But this was one place that I just didn't have closure and peace with. So I had heard about the Tribute Center, and I had got their, newsletters, and I decided, you know what, let me try this. I had spent a lot of time at the firehouse, and I told my story, and a lot of people really got a lot of positive feedback from that, so I said, maybe I can share it here, and I can be part of the rebuilding of the Trade Center. I could be part of the memorial, and maybe that would help me heal the rest of what was left unhealed. And I get to share my story of Paul and all the guys from the 1st Battalion that helped me finish my house, which I moved in October of 2002. So I get to share that, and you get to take them home with you. So thank you. Thank you for letting me share.